You've been lied to your entire life about what it means to be financially successful, not by some shadowy conspiracy, not by accident, by a system so perfectly designed, so quietly efficient, that the people trapped inside it genuinely believe they're winning. They earn more, they spend more, they stress more, and somehow every single month they end up exactly where they started, broke, confused, and one unexpected bill away from crisis. In 2026, the median household income in the United States crossed $82,000 a year. That's not poverty. That's not struggling. By almost any historical standard, that's a number that should translate into security, savings, maybe even wealth. And yet nearly 63% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, not people earning $25,000, people earning $80,000, $100,000, $150,000 a year. There's a name for what's happening. Economists call it income expenditure parallelism. But that phrase is too clean, too academic. It doesn't capture what it actually feels like to earn more money than your parents ever dreamed of and still lie awake at night wondering how you're going to make rent. What's really happening is something darker, something more psychological, something almost impossible to escape once you're inside it. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why earning more money, without understanding this one critical dynamic, doesn't just fail to make you wealthy. It actively makes you poorer. There are three things we're going to unpack today that most financial content will never touch. First, why the architecture of modern income growth is specifically designed to consume itself. Second, the psychological mechanism that turns every raise into a new financial prison. And third, the one shift in thinking that separates people who build wealth from people who simply earn it and watch it disappear. But before we get there, there's a question that needs to be answered. A question that should bother anyone who's ever gotten a raise and felt somehow more stressed after than before. Why does more money so often feel like less freedom? Let's go back. Not to some distant economic theory, but to a very specific moment in American financial history that most people have completely forgotten. The year is 1973. The average American worker is earning roughly $54,000 in today's dollars. Mortgage debt, as a percentage of household income, sits at around 29%. Credit, card debt barely exists as a mainstream product. The average household savings rate is hovering near 12%. Now fast forward to today. The average American worker earns more in raw dollar terms. Productivity has increased by over 60% since the early 1970s, and yet the household savings rate has collapsed to somewhere between 3% and 5% depending on which quarter you're measuring. Consumer debt, credit cards, auto loans, personal loans, student loans has exploded past $17 trillion. And that 12% savings rate from 1973? It feels like a fantasy. Here's what changed. And this is crucial, so stay with me. It wasn't just inflation, it wasn't just greed. It was the systematic redesign of what consumption means in modern society. In the 1970s, consumption was largely static. You bought a house. You kept it for 30 years. You bought a car. You drove it until it stopped working. The things you owned were meant to last, and the identity you attached to those things was largely fixed. Then something shifted. The consumer economy discovered something incredibly powerful, something that would change the relationship between income and spending forever. They discovered that if you could make identity fluid, if you could convince people that who they are is tied to what they currently own, then the appetite for consumption becomes theoretically infinite. You don't just need a car. You need the new car. You don't just need a phone, you need the latest phone. You don't just need a home, you need the upgraded home in the better neighborhood because your current neighbor just renovated their kitchen and somehow you feel it in your chest. This is the machine, and the machine doesn't care how much you earn. It scales with you. It always has. But here's what nobody is talking about in 2026. The machine has evolved. And its new form is far more dangerous than anything we've seen before. For decades, economists and behavioral psychologists have understood the concept of lifestyle inflation. Spend more as you earn more. It's real. It's documented. It's taught in every basic personal finance course. But what's happening now is different. It's not just that spending rises to meet income. It's that the systems surrounding modern income growth have been engineered to make spending rise faster than income, and in some cases, significantly faster. Think about what happens when you get a promotion, a real one. Say you're earning $75,000 a year, and you land a role that pays $110,000. On paper, that's a $35,000 annual raise. After federal taxes, state taxes, and payroll deductions, your actual take-home increase might be somewhere around $19,000 to $22,000 annually, depending on your state. But watch what happens next. Your new role often comes with an implicit social contract. Not a written one, not one anyone tells you about, but one that's communicated through 1,000 subtle signals. The neighborhood you're expected to live in, the restaurants your colleagues go to at lunch, the vacation you feel you should take now that you've made it to this level, the wardrobe that matches the new title, the car in the parking lot that you start to feel out of place next to in your 4-year-old sedan. None of this is imagined. Research from the Journal of Consumer Psychology has repeatedly confirmed that income peers, the people in your professional and social orbit, are the single most powerful driver of discretionary spending decisions. Not your own desires, not your rational plans, the invisible social gravity of the people around you, and as your income increases, your income peers change. You move up, and the people around you at the new level are spending more, not because they're reckless, not because they're unintelligent, because they're human, and humans are wired for social calibration. This is where the paradox lives. The more you earn, the higher the floor of your social spending environment. And if your wealth-building habits don't change simultaneously and dramatically, you end up spending more in absolute terms, more in proportional terms, and saving less as a percentage of income than you did before the raise. That's not a theory. That's the data. A 2025 study from the Urban Institute found that households earning between $100,000 and $150,000 annually had a median net worth lower than households earning $70,000 to $85,000 who had maintained consistent saving habits over a decade. Read that again. People earning more, worth less. Because income without financial architecture isn't wealth. It's just a bigger hamster wheel. But this is where everything changes. Because the spending problem, as real as it is, isn't actually the deepest layer of this paradox. Underneath the lifestyle inflation, underneath the social spending pressure, there's something more fundamental. Something that operates below conscious awareness and shapes every financial decision a person makes. It's called financial identity, anchoring. And in 2026, with the tools that corporations, financial institutions, and even employers now have at their disposal, it has become weaponized. If you found value in what you're learning here, do yourself one favor right now. Subscribe to FinTrove and hit the notification bell. We release content like this regularly, and most people who watch one video end up watching 5. Don't let the algorithm bury this channel on you. Financial identity anchoring is the process by which people internalize their income level as a permanent feature of their self-concept. Not a temporary number, not a point on a trajectory, but a definition of who they are. And when your income becomes your identity, something very specific and very dangerous happens. Saving money, real, saving, wealth-building saving, starts to feel psychologically threatening. Because accumulating savings beyond your current lifestyle means admitting that you could live on less. And if you could live on less, then what does the number on your paycheck actually mean? This isn't hypothetical. Behavioral economists at the University of Chicago ran a series of studies in 2023 and 2024 tracking the saving behaviors of individuals who received significant income increases. What they found was startling. In the 12 months following a major income increase, the majority of participants not only failed to increase their saving rate, they actually decreased it. Not because they were spending recklessly, but because their increased income came bundled with an increased sense of financial self-worth that made aggressive saving feel unnecessary. Like taking an umbrella to a place you've decided isn't going to rain. I'm doing well now. I don't need to be as careful. That thought, in some form, lives in the head of almost every upwardly mobile professional. And it is the single most expensive thought a person can have. Because wealth isn't built during the years you think you don't need to worry. Wealth is built precisely during those years. The compounding math is brutal in its honesty. A person who earns $75,000 and saves 15% of their income, $11,250 per year, invested at a 7% average annual return, will have accumulated over $1.1 million in 30 years. A person who earns $150,000 and saves 4% of their income, $6,000 per year at the same return, will have accumulated just over $566,000. Double the income, half the wealth. Not because of bad luck, not because of market volatility, because of the gap between what a person earns and what they actually protect. And here's the piece that almost no one is factoring into their financial thinking in 2026. That gap, the distance between income and protected wealth, is growing. Not because people are becoming less disciplined, but because the economic environment has fundamentally changed in ways that specifically target that gap. Consider debt. In previous decades, debt was a relatively blunt instrument. Credit card interest rates were high but fixed. Mortgage terms were standardized. The risk of debt was visible. It was obvious. You could see the interest accumulating. You knew what you owed. Today, debt has been redesigned. It has been made invisible, convenient, and psychologically frictionless. Buy now, pay later platforms processed over $200 billion in transactions in 2025. Subscription stacking, the phenomenon of accumulating dozens of small recurring charges that individually seem insignificant, costs the average American household over $2,400 annually in services they actively use less than once a month. Auto loan terms have extended to 7 and 8 years, reducing monthly payments while dramatically increasing total interest paid. Medical debt financing has been normalized through interest-bearing payment plans that most people accept without ever calculating the actual cost. None of this debt feels dramatic. None of it feels like a crisis. It feels like just the way things work. And that is exactly the point. When debt is engineered to feel normal, it doesn't trigger the psychological alarm systems that protect financial health. It just quietly grows. And the people most vulnerable to this quiet growth are not the people at the bottom of the income distribution. They're the people in the middle and upper middle. The people earning $80,000, $120,000, $180,000 a year, who have enough income to service expanding debt comfortably, who have enough social status to feel confident about their financial trajectory, and who have just enough financial anxiety to keep reaching for the next income milestone as if it's going to solve the problem. It won't. Because the problem isn't income. The problem is the system that income feeds. Let's talk about the housing market for a moment, because it has become one of the most sophisticated mechanisms for converting income gains into financial stagnation. In modern history, in 2021, the average 30-year mortgage rate in the United States sat at 2.96%. In 2024, it peaked above 7.5%. In early 2026, it's hovering around 6.8%. What this means in practical terms is that a home that was affordable on a $120,000 income in 2021 now requires somewhere around $160,000 to $175,000 in household income to carry the same mortgage payment in real terms. So here's what happened. A generation of earners who were told that home ownership is the foundation of wealth building watched their entry point into that system price them out. Many of them responded by working harder, earning more, pursuing promotions and second income streams with genuine urgency. and many of them achieved it. They got the raises. They closed the gap. They finally bought the house. And then watched almost all of that income growth disappear into a mortgage payment that consumed their financial flexibility entirely. They own an asset that may appreciate, but they have no liquidity, no savings runway, no financial cushion. Their one job. Loss away from collapse, one medical event from disaster. This is not wealth. This is the appearance of wealth. And the distinction between the two is everything. Here's the deeper truth that the financial industry doesn't have a financial incentive to tell you. The wealth gap in America is not primarily a gap between people who earn a lot and people who earn a little. It's a gap between people who understand how to convert income into assets, real, appreciating, income-generating assets, and people who convert income into expenses that masquerade as assets. A car is not an asset. A depreciating liability with a monthly payment attached to it is a consumable. A subscription service is not a convenience fee. It's a recurring revenue stream flowing from your account into a corporation's. A house that you max out your budget to buy and cannot afford to maintain is not a wealth vehicle. It is a financial trap with landscaping. The wealthy, the genuinely structurally wealthy, do not just earn more. They think about money differently at the level of category, and this shift in categorization is learnable, but it requires confronting something uncomfortable. It requires admitting that the way you currently think about money is not neutral. It has been shaped by a system that profits from your confusion, and that system is not going to teach you how to escape it. So what does escaping it actually look like? It starts with a concept that sounds simple but is almost revolutionary in its application. It's called wealth rate. And it's different from savings rate, though most people conflate the two. Your savings rate is the percentage of your income that you don't spend in a given month. Your wealth rate is the percentage of your income that is actively working to generate future income without your direct labor involved. Savings, by itself, is not wealth building. Money sitting in a savings account earning 4.5% annual interest, while inflation runs at 3.2%, is barely treading water. It's not growing. It's surviving. Wealth rate means the portion of your income flowing into instruments that compound: index funds, real estate equity with positive cash flow, business equity, income-generating assets. The number doesn't have to be massive to be transformative, but it has to be consistent, and it has to be protected from the social and psychological forces that will try to redirect it toward consumption at every turn. The single most powerful financial decision a person can make in 2026 is not choosing the right investment vehicle. It's automating their wealth rate before their brain has a chance to reroute it. Automatic investment contributions, automatic savings transfers, automatic retirement contributions at the maximum employer match level. Every dollar that hits your wealth rate before it hits your spending account is a dollar that has escaped the machine. Because the machine is fast. The social pressure, the identity anchoring, the subscription-based debt culture, the housing market squeeze. They all operate in real time. They don't wait. They're already bidding on your next raise before you receive it. The second shift is harder because it's internal. It's rebuilding the relationship between income and identity. And this is where most financial advice fails, because it treats behavior as the root cause when behavior is actually a symptom. If your financial self-worth is tied to your income level, you will always spend to justify it. Always. Because the alternative, spending significantly less than you earn, feels like a contradiction of who you are. It feels like poverty. It feels like deprivation. Even when your savings account is growing and your net worth is increasing, if your identity says, "I'm someone who earns $150,000, then living at a $90,000 lifestyle will feel wrong at a level that no spreadsheet can fix. The people who successfully build wealth while earning high incomes, and they exist, they are real, and their behaviors are well documented, share one consistent psychological trait. They have separated the story of their income from the story of their worth. They don't feel the need to prove their income through their spending. The car, the house, the wardrobe. These are tools and comforts, not testimony. They hold them loosely. This is not asceticism. This is not minimalism as a lifestyle brand. It's a specific cognitive and emotional recalibration that says, the proof of my financial success is my net worth trajectory, not my visible consumption. And until that shift happens internally, no financial strategy will hold under the pressure of social reality. The third shift is systemic, and it operates at the level of environment design. There is substantial research showing that individual willpower, the kind that says, I'm going to resist lifestyle inflation through sheer discipline, is an exhaustible resource. It depletes. It fails under sustained social pressure. It breaks down under stress, fatigue, celebration, grief, and 100 other perfectly normal human states. Environment design is not about discipline. It's about engineering the conditions under which the default behavior is wealth building, rather than wealth consuming. Your automatic investment contributions are environment design. Your decision to unsubscribe from retail marketing emails is environment design. Your choice of social community, who you spend your time with, whose lifestyle you're unconsciously benchmarked against, is perhaps the most powerful piece of environment design available to you. Jim Rohn's observation that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with was never more financially relevant than it is in 2026. When your social orbit is composed primarily of high-earning, high-spending peers, the social gravity toward consumption is nearly constant and almost invisible. When your social orbit includes people who are deliberately building wealth, who talk about net worth, not take-home pay, who talk about investment returns, not quarterly bonuses, the invisible benchmark shifts. You don't change through information alone. You change through environment. An environment can be chosen, designed, and protected. Here's where we close the loop. Remember the question we started with. Why does more money so often feel like less freedom? Now you know the answer. Because more money, fed into the same system, with the same identity structure, the same social environment, and the same relationship between income and spending, doesn't create freedom. It creates an upgraded version of the same trap. The walls are nicer, the trap is bigger, but the result, financial fragility, stress, the monthly scramble, the perpetual feeling of almost but not quite, remains exactly the same. The forever broke paradox isn't a paradox at all once you understand it. It's a predictable, engineered outcome of a consumer economy that has optimized itself to capture an ever-increasing percentage of ever-increasing incomes. And it works, staggeringly well, on exactly the people who are most economically productive, most socially conscious, and most sincerely trying to do the right things with their money. The escape is not about earning more. The escape is about refusing to let the system define what your income means. It's about choosing, deliberately and consistently, to route a portion of every dollar you earn toward assets that exist outside the consumption loop. It's about recognizing that financial freedom is not a feeling. It's a number. The number is your invested net worth divided by your annual expenses. When that ratio reaches approximately 25, you are, by any reasonable definition, financially free regardless of what your salary is. Most people never calculate that number. Most people spend their careers chasing income instead of chasing that ratio. And the system, every advertisement, every social media platform, every employer bonus structure, every mortgage lender, is perfectly content to let them do exactly that. You've spent 20 minutes today understanding something that most people with $500,000 salaries have never been told. Don't let it sit in your watch history. Use it. If this video changed how you think about money, subscribe to FinTrove right now. We break down the systems, the psychology, and the real mechanics of wealth building in ways that most financial channels are either unwilling or unqualified to touch. Share this video with someone you care about who needs to hear it. Because the best thing you can do with financial clarity is make sure it's contagious. The game is real. The exit is real. And it starts the moment you stop confusing income with wealth.